Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to welcome you to the Gary Null Show. Today we continue with that really probing look at it's not your fault, you're stupid. Maybe our job isn't what it is, maybe it's insecure, maybe we could get fired or laid off. Maybe the environment is different. We no longer can go for a walk because there's a street gang that we're looking out at. So we're now a prisoner in our own home and we're angry about it. Maybe we can't even afford the taxes on our home anymore. Maybe the things we at one time bought we can't afford to pay for. Maybe one day we wake up and realize, my goodness, there's so many things in my life that I cannot control. I am so frustrated. And then what do? We no longer believe we can change this moment. If you can't change this moment, then you don't have a future. And that's why that second question is so important. The third question, what creates the limits to what you can achieve? What creates the limits? Our beliefs. But what if you challenged your beliefs and you said, whatever I choose to achieve, I can and I will, because I believe in myself that much. And then you put it in your mind. You focus, you visualize, and keep everything out. Don't allow anything else to distract you. Don't multitask because that's just a distraction. Keep singularly focused on getting what you want accomplished. And realize, first, is what you're trying to accomplish going to allow you to be what you can be? Does it honor who you are? Is it authentic? It is a real connection. Because if you're trying to connect with something that's not authentic, that's stupid. How many times have we connected in a relationship that was not authentic, but it was convenient? Do you know how many guys I know who are in their 40s who hang out at single places or do ads with the hopes they'll find a resume and a face that they feel compatible with because they're so insecure that they feel their life is so empty without someone else to be with, so they'll take whatever comes along as if, well, gee whiz, who else is going to want me? I'm 40 years old. I don't have all my hair. I don't have all my virility and strength. I mean, I'm not 20 anymore. So we start thinking, well, I better take what I can. We do the same thing with jobs. We do the same thing where we live. There's a wonderful country we live in. A lot of places you can still live where it's beautiful, nice people, great schools, and it's not expensive. And then I know people who are stuck in highly congested, very crowded, overly priced environments because they feel they have no other option. And indeed, they have no other option because their mind didn't allow them to think of having an option. Remember, whatever you think, that is what you're going to become. That's your reality. So if you think negative, you're going to end up manifesting negative. And then each day you're going to wake up and adapt to the environment you're in. You're going to adapt to the person you're with. You're going to adapt to the pain from your past. You're going to adapt to what society said you can't do because you're such and such. You can't do it. The moment you accept that, you're limited. I don't want to see you limited. I want to see you expand. I want to see you be like Niagara Falls, just flowing with energy, unstoppable. That's what's possible if you believe it. Number 4. Do you believe that the limitations of the past will become the limitations of now? Now think of that for a moment. How many times have you felt you wanted to do something and stopped yourself because you didn't believe that you could get beyond the pain that you were holding from the past? So you have to have a conversation with your pain self, your fear self, your limited self, before you allow the self to say, well, I've been in pain, I am confused, I'm uncertain, I'm not truly confident, I have marginal self-esteem, I may put on a smiling face for the world and a little bravado, but underneath there's a great deal of turmoil that I process by complaining to friends or watching television or escaping into moods and depression and for long periods of time. Well, then what in the world is going to be the moment you're in? You've simply invited everything from the past that you believe is not going to change into now. So if you believe you are not going to change, then what you have suffered in the past becomes what you're going to suffer now, and hence your future is only regurgitating the same suffering. You have to believe in something other than the past. The past is not your strength. The past is an amalgamation of everything that has held you into a belief that limited you and your experience. You have to believe completely in your capacity at this moment. Think of the people in this world who have not allowed their past to dictate where they're going. Recently, I was down in South Beach. I'd done a television special, and I had some hours to knock away, so I went down there because it's a wonderful place. I think South Beach is one of the most terrific places in America because it's party time. It's always open to joy, fun, pleasure, and you have people that truly enjoy themselves. And it's interesting to see the local population who are far more sophisticated about just openness. You got a new beach, you've got people playing volleyball, you got people dancing, you got music. You'll see couples out dancing in the street. Now, if they did that here, they'd be off to Bellevue, right? Yet here you can yell and scream in the street, and that nobody pays attention, right? That's normal. And so I'm watching. I'm sitting at this outdoor restaurant, and it was just so nice looking at the ocean across the street and on Ocean Drive. Any of you been to South Beach? Really a great place. And a whole amalgamation, people smiling at one another, you know, people stopping and talking, strangers talking. And I see this woman, and I see her walking down the street, and two guys walk by, and she turns and she makes a comment. And this is about 5 feet away from me. And these two guys stop, and they turn around, and they come back. And I hear what she's saying. And so they talk for a while, and then she goes over and she sits down to have something to eat. And I said, how do you feel about what you just did? And she said, I felt great about it. And we had a conversation. And it turns out that she's someone from Washington, D.C. who listens to my radio show on WPFW down there. I've been down there for 16 years every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on the radio in the afternoon. And she's 51 years old. She's a member of the Washington culture, the political culture. And she'd gone through 6 months of a deep depression. She had gone through menopause, her figure changed. She went from 130 pounds to 170 pounds. She just let herself go. She didn't believe in anything any longer because everything was changing. And then about 3 months ago, she realized that why should you just accept that this is inevitable? Because all of her friends had had plastic surgery and they looked it. And little porcelain dolls. Gee, did it take too much off? And so she said, I have nothing to lose. No. So why should I try to act like I'm 51 years old? She says, the heck with it. So she went out and started working out and changed her diet. Even though she'd been listening to me on the radio, she hadn't done any of that stuff. And then she saw a program that I did visiting her family who lived in Miami called Power Aging. And she got the book and she followed the advice and she rebalanced her hormones. And her weight she had lost, I guess she was about 145 then, little bit overweight, but she lost a lot, but most importantly she wasn't depressed. And before they wanted to have her on Prozac and Paxil, and and she wouldn't get out of bed for 2 days at a time. And she'd go through crying jags, and she felt miserable. Here she is. She sees two guys come down the street. They must be about 25 years old. You know, in South Beach, there's a sign. It says, if you're ugly, stay out. Because I'm going to tell you, I've never seen that many beautiful people in my life. God. You know, the women are like all models, right? And the guys are all buffed up. And so guys walk by, and she says, guys, great asses. And that's why they turn around and talk to her, right? And she said, I never in my life would have said this before. But I just saw it and I just said it. She says, what have I got to lose? And I said, good for you. The courage just to be in the moment. And when she was in the moment, she felt free, uninhibited. Because before she said, we had like a 2-hour conversation, she said she was inhibited. She wouldn't do anything that wasn't politically correct and socially correct and culturally correct. She lived her whole life, she said, backing through life, walking backwards, making sure she didn't make mistakes. And she was miserable. She said she's enjoyed life more in the last 3 months than she had in the previous 10 years. That's what it means to free yourself. But to free yourself means you've got to be responsible to surrender the past so you're present. Because now in this moment is when you can have joy, pleasure, passion, and bring it forward. You can't do it from the past because if you haven't enjoyed it in the past, past's not going to allow you to do it now. Next. We attack what we fear. When I was first starting in the health field, I did a lot of debates because there was no one willing to go out there and take on the meat industry, the dairy industry, the sugar industry, the chemical industry. All these industries had big trade organizations that would bring these highly credentialed doctors forward to take you on. I wasn't afraid of that. I said, truth on the side of one is still a majority. So I'm going to go after this issue and I'm going to share what I have to say and let the public make up their own mind. And time and again, these people would come just loaded with hatred to try to destroy me. And after one of the debates in Atlanta, and it was an interesting debate because I'd been touring on the West Coast, and this is back 1972. I had a best-selling book, and I was on tour. And prophetically, everything I wrote about back then, like overuse of antibiotics leading to drug-resistant bacteria, pesticide in farming, destroying groundwater, which has destroyed now 60 million people's ability to drink water because their wells are poisoned because of pesticides. The amount of sugar that we were consuming would cause obesity. The fast foods. I wrote about all this stuff 30 years ago. It's all prophetic now. But here I was asked, could you come by and do a little talk in Atlanta? Be on a morning show for 10 minutes. Sure. So on the way back to New York, I stopped there. It was early and I was going to go to the hotel and they said, no, we've got to go right over. We want to do just a brief interview. I got there. You know, when you are on a red eye over, you know, you're not sleeping, you're all bloodshot eyes and everything. I walk in and this producer comes up and says, okay, you're on in 3 minutes. I says, for what? Well, we've got this interview. So I went inside and I splashed my face and I shaved real quick and I ran back out and I got on the stage and there are 5 guys, doctors, with folders. I didn't know who they were. And one of the guys says, and we have a discussion. The camera come on, it says, it's about quackery in America. I'm thinking, who are they talking about? And so I'm just listening. And for most of the show, these guys just attack, protect, you know, defending DDT and defending Agent Orange and that it wasn't bad for the soldiers when it was sprayed or the natives, you know, and the citizens in South Vietnam and defending, you know, our water was clean, nothing was wrong with fluoride or chlorine. Everything you could think about, they defended. Like there was no drug so bad they would attack. And so then I'm looking at the clock and it's winding down and I haven't had a chance to defend myself. So I'm thinking, how am I going to go through and respond to all these statements? So I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to. So what am I going to do? Well, relate to people in a way they can understand. So during the break, the last break, I said, where are you all from? And so one of the producers came over and whispered, Gary, they're all of them are associated with the cola company. And that's why they're after you, because you had gone against cola and kids. I said, thanks. Okay. So we come back on the air and I said, well, I'm not a MD or a PhD or a great scientist like these people. I'm just a common person. I'm just a simple guy from West Virginia. Grew up in a small town, lived in the town on a farm. I don't have all these studies. I just was trying to share common sense. But I'll tell you what, these people would have you believe that all the way you're eating, the French fries, hamburgers, hot dogs, pizzas, the colas, those are fine. Well, how do you feel when you eat them? What's causing our obesity? What's causing our teeth to rot? What's causing our upset stomach? What's causing our children to bounce off the walls when they go to school in the morning? I believe it's the foods that they are defending, because what has not been asked, and I want to ask it, are any of you scientists here associated directly or indirectly with any special interest group, like a cola company, for example? They feared me because they feared change. They felt threatened. Instead of dialoguing with me, talking with me, seeing what my ideas were and what might be reasonable or not reasonable, they simply threw everything out. And isn't that what we do in our society? We throw everything out that is not black and white, that's not good and bad. We divide everything into absolutes. Well, what in life is absolute? Everything is a shade of gray, and we have to be patient enough to listen, to learn, to understand. Go to neutral. When you go to neutral and you try to understand something, you hear everything, you see everything, and what you see and hear then gives you an understanding of what is. But if you start off with a predetermined bias, and if the beliefs that you are part of are the bias, then you will overreact, you will demonize things, you will come from fear, and fear is so constricting. Remember, fear constricts the muscles, but fear constricts the mind. And you can't make a good decision from fear. You can't make a good decision from hate. You can't make a good decision when you are so upset about something because you feel threatened by loss of prestige. Women, when they rose up in their voice to say, do not treat us as a disease, we are not a pathology, all over America, politicians, women who were not supportive of that, and physicians absolutely responded out of fear and attacked them. And yet all women said is, we have a right to our bodies. We have a right. And yet historically, medicine has abused women nonstop in every way you could. And yet most women won't stand up for themselves. That's how powerful a belief system is. When a belief system is so powerful that in spite of all the evidence that most of the procedures done are not scientifically based and not in the benefit of the woman, women will still line up to get it. That's a belief system. A belief system becomes more significant than a person's own sense of reality. Look at anyone and everything that comes from fear, and before you respond to it, understand that it's based upon their absolute sense of threat. It can be totally imaginary, totally illusion, and they'll feel it. Look at the Muslim and Hindu who fight. Fight. Look at the Arab and Jew who fight. And we can all say, well, they're to blame, and they're to blame, and they're to blame. This doesn't matter. Both then are responding from fear. What if the Hutu and the Tutsi respond to each other out of love? First, the Tutsi, the minority that controlled all the government positions and businesses because they, quote, were more of an Anglo-Saxon with tall features, thinner nose, less of a thick forehead that the Dutch and the French early in the beginning of the last century and the end of the 1800s had made them more like white people. Well, then they gave the power to the Tutsi and denied it to the majority of the Hutu until they could shift power. And when they did so radically that they created the greatest genocide in a 100-day period in history. Almost 1 million people killed, 900,000 plus people in 90 days. What if they both looked at each other from love? Then the Tutsi would have relinquished power and shared it. But they didn't. And what if the Arab and Jew looked at each other with love instead of hate and fear? Then you could resolve conflicts. But that's not how we think, and that's why the danger is when you come from fear. Next. Are you able to see everything in your daily life honestly. Now here's where you separate out illusion from honesty. If I see that my neighbor is never smiling in the elevator, never says hello, and always feels somewhat threatened if you want a conversation, then just be honest about it. I don't have to say anything to them, but at least I have to be honest about that. If I see people starting their day with coffee and bagels, it's going to adversely affect their system. It's going to make them hyper and then crash. They're going to be zigzagging up and down with their emotions all day. Their emotions are going to follow their blood sugar up and down. I just have to be honest about it. If I see children who are being handled by parents who are on the cell phone, walking back and forth, that little child is going to be looking at that parent and then feeling that it's okay to walk back and forth and back and forth. And now they're going to in school and do that, and they're called hyperactive because they can't sit still. If I see a boss saying, "Get me this, get me that," and people doing it, it's not for me to intervene in that process. It's for me to be aware of that process, to be honest about it. If I see someone demonizing someone, alienating someone, it's for me to recognize what it is and not defend it. If I listen to a radio station that produces hate over the air, it's for me to recognize that it's hate, not make it an illusion. It's when we try to make something an illusion because of our political affiliations, our racial affiliations, our ethnic affiliations, our religious affiliations, instead of simply saying what it is. If a religious fundamentalistic leader goes on television and says yoga is the act of the devil, it is very stupid to do that because a lot of people in that person's following are going to say, yeah, yoga is an act of the devil. Think of how they will look at someone then who says, yeah, I practice yoga. They're going to look at you as if you're an evil person, and then you're suspect, and then you're disconnected, and then you can't share anything with that person because they're not going to allow it. It's not for me to change that person's mind. It's for me to make sure my mind is aware of what has happened, so I don't become vulnerable to someone manipulating my thoughts for their gain. That's what it means to be honest about the moment you're in. And if I see love that's unconditional, and if I see generosity, if I see compassion, I have to be present enough to say, I see it, I understand it. So just being present in an honest way and seeing things for what they are helps us realize how we then can see ourselves. Because for every vision that we see out allows us a reflection of in. And then we think, gee, I was one of those people that would react to the mob instinct to get this person or get that person, or do this or do that, or criticize this or that, or believe I couldn't do this or do that. So honesty out means you can change your perception of yourself in. Next, do you see opportunities and then actualize them? A lot of people never see the opportunity because between the opportunity and what they're looking at is fear, their past, their sense of incompleteness. Well, when I become complete, then we'll do something. Well, when is that going to be? Please tell me that magic day. But when does that day come? When a person feels incomplete? It never comes, does it? When does it happen? When we take advantage of an opportunity, when we're coming from fear? We never do. So then we kind of live this forlorn existence that somehow life should come up and set that opportunity in our laps. But does life come and put that opportunity in our laps? No. It's like waiting to stream every day for an opportunity to step in, but it's never the right time. It's always something keeping you from doing it. And life is a stream, it is a flow. Energy is constantly flowing. Energy is never static. Energy never stands still. But we try to hold it in place. We try to corral it. We try to own it. We try to possess it. And you can't. It's like possessing love, possessing respect, possessing permanency. We can't. But be present for the moment you're in, and you can flow with it. So in the end, what do we have? We have moments in time, moments that we can embrace, connect with, be present for. And when you connect for that moment in time, that is real. Then we feel something. And every nerve and every neuron and every biochemical in our body floods us with a sensation and a feeling. And with that sensation and feeling of being flooded, we then forever have that experience. The good news is we can always rely upon that experience to rekindle something when no longer do we have the opportunity. The bad part of that is, more often than not, we rely upon the thoughts of the past from those moments because we don't see an opportunity or we're afraid to take it. Well, I'll bet you're not going to make the same mistakes twice now, right? Smart people doing stupid things, but now we know why. I'll see you next week.